The Haunting of Blackwood Manor. The night was shrouded in a thick fog that clung to the trees and whispered secrets of the past. Blackwood Manor loomed on the outskirts of the isolated town, its ancient stones weathered by centuries of forgotten stories. It was here that Sarah found herself, the unsuspecting inheritor of this ominous Victorian mansion. Sarah had never met her estranged great-great-grandmother, Lady Isabella, but when Mr. Blackwood, the enigmatic family lawyer, appeared on her doorstep with the news of her inheritance, Sarah's life took an unexpected turn. She had thought it a blessing, a chance at a fresh start, but as she approached the towering gates of Blackwood Manor, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her. The mansion, with its towering turrets and ivy-covered walls, was both breathtaking and eerie under the pale moonlight. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the grand foyer as she crossed the threshold. Dusty chandeliers hung low, their crystals catching the dim light like ghostly tears. Cobwebs clung to every corner, as if the very air was filled with the sighs of long-departed souls. Sarah's exploration led her to the library, where leather-bound books lined the shelves, their spines cracking with age. As she touched one, a shiver ran down her spine. Unbeknownst to her, the secrets of the past were buried within these pages, waiting to be unearthed. Days turned into weeks as Sarah settled into Blackwood Manor, her nights filled with restless dreams of a shadowy figure in a long, flowing gown. She couldn't deny the feeling that she was not alone in the mansion, that the whispers in the walls held more than mere echoes. Desperate for answers, Sarah reached out to Mr. Blackwood, the only connection to her family's past. He agreed to meet her at the mansion, his face a mask of stoic resolve. With a flicker of candlelight, they sat around an antique table, a crystal ball at its center. "We shall attempt to communicate with Lady Isabella," Mr. Blackwood said, his voice unwavering. "But be warned, the spirit world can be unpredictable." The séance began, the room growing colder as the atmosphere shifted. Sarah closed her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest, as Mr. Blackwood called out to the other side. Whispers filled the air, and the crystal ball trembled, revealing a ghostly figure. Lady Isabella materialized, her ethereal presence casting an eerie glow. Her eyes, filled with a centuries-old rage, locked onto Sarah's. "You," she hissed, "descendant of betrayal." Sarah's voice quivered as she stammered, "I didn't betray you. I never even knew you." Lady Isabella's form flickered, revealing glimpses of the past. Sarah watched in horror as the events unfolded before her eyes. Betrayal, lies, and a family secret so dark it had been buried for generations. Sarah's great-great-grandmother had been wronged, and now her restless spirit sought vengeance. Mr. Blackwood urged Sarah to uncover the truth, to break the cycle of anger and despair that bound Lady Isabella to Blackwood Manor. Armed with newfound determination, Sarah delved into the mansion's history, unraveling the dark secrets that had festered for so long. Hidden passages and concealed letters led her to a forgotten basement, where a chilling discovery awaited. A room filled with dusty, decaying paintings, each one depicting the faces of those who had wronged Lady Isabella. The walls bore witness to the hatred that had consumed her. As Sarah pieced together the puzzle, she realized that her ancestors had not only betrayed Lady Isabella but had also condemned her to a life of misery. The mansion itself was a testament to their treachery, a prison for her tormented spirit. With newfound purpose, Sarah confronted Lady Isabella in the basement, her voice trembling but resolute. "I know what my family did, and I'm here to make amends." The ghostly figure wavered, torn between vengeance and the possibility of release. Sarah's plea touched something deep within Lady Isabella, a glimmer of the humanity she had lost over the centuries. In the end, it was an act of forgiveness that broke the curse. As the first rays of dawn bathed Blackwood Manor in light, Lady Isabella's spirit dissipated, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of relief. The mansion, once a place of darkness and despair, seemed to breathe with newfound life. Sarah knew that her family's sins could never be undone, but she had offered Lady Isabella the one thing she had longed for: a chance at peace. As Sarah stepped outside into the morning sun, she couldn't help but feel that the weight of centuries had lifted from her shoulders. The legacy of betrayal had come to an end, and Blackwood Manor, once haunted by a vengeful spirit, had found its long-awaited redemption. But Sarah knew that the echoes of the past would always linger in the shadows, a reminder of the sins that could never truly be forgotten. And as she walked away from the mansion, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the world, waiting to be uncovered by those who dared to confront the darkness within. The curse of Harrison House. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the sprawling, ancient estate known as Harrison House. It was a place that had stood for centuries, its time-worn stones steeped in history, and it beckoned the Harrison family with promises of a new beginning. Little did they know that their dream home would soon become a nightmarish descent into the abyss of the unknown. The Harrisons, a family of 4, had moved from the hustle and bustle of the city to this tranquil countryside estate, seeking solace and a fresh start. Their smiles were wide as they stood on the grand porch, taking in the magnificent view of rolling hills and a forest that seemed to stretch endlessly. As the days turned into weeks, Harrison House revealed its mysteries one by one. At first, it was the subtle changes. A chair moved, a door left ajar, whispered voices in the dark of night. The Harrisons brushed these off as the quirks of an old house, but they couldn't ignore the sense of unease that settled over them. The true terror began with the apparitions. First, it was a fleeting glimpse of a woman in a long, tattered gown, her eyes filled with sorrow. Then, a shadowy figure that moved silently through the halls, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. The family members exchanged fearful glances, their new beginning turning into a waking nightmare. The most unsettling part was the way the house seemed to change after nightfall. Rooms that had been cozy and inviting during the day became oppressive and suffocating. The walls seemed to close in, and the air grew heavy with an inexplicable dread. The Harrisons couldn't escape the feeling that they were being watched, monitored by unseen eyes. One fateful night, as the family huddled in their shared fear, a chilling voice echoed through the house. "Get out," it hissed, a malicious intent seeping into every syllable. The Harrisons, their faces pale with terror, knew they were not alone in Harrison House. Something malevolent, something ancient, sought to drive them away. Desperate for answers, they turned to the local townsfolk, hoping to uncover the dark history of the estate. What they learned sent shivers down their spines. Harrison House had a legacy of tragedy and sorrow, with each previous owner meeting a gruesome end or succumbing to madness. The townsfolk spoke of a curse born of jealousy and betrayal, one that had bound the malevolent presence to the estate for centuries. They warned the Harrisons that they were in grave danger, that the curse was relentless and would stop at nothing to claim their souls. But the Harrisons were determined to fight back. Armed with their love for one another and a newfound courage, they embarked on a journey to unravel the secrets of Harrison House and break the curse that threatened to tear their family apart. Their investigation led them to a hidden chamber beneath the mansion, a place where darkness converged with despair. There, they found a diary, its pages filled with the tormented scribblings of past residents who had tried in vain to escape the house's clutches. As they read, the walls of the chamber began to tremble, and the malevolent presence descended upon them. It manifested as a grotesque, spectral figure, its eyes burning with hatred. "You cannot escape," it howled, its voice echoing through the chamber. But the Harrisons were not alone. With the diary as their guide, they recited an incantation passed down through the generations, a desperate plea for salvation. As they spoke the words, a blinding light enveloped the chamber, and the curse began to unravel. The malevolent presence wailed in agony, its form dissipating into nothingness. The walls ceased their tremors, and the darkness that had haunted Harrison House for centuries began to recede. The sun rose over the estate, its rays bathing the mansion in a warm, welcoming light. The curse had been broken, and the Harrison family, battered but victorious, emerged from the hidden chamber, their bond stronger than ever. As they looked out over the countryside, they knew that Harrison House would forever bear the scars of its dark past. But it was a past that would no longer hold sway over their lives. The vulnerability of the family unit had been tested, and they had emerged from the ordeal with a newfound strength, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Harrison House had been a place of nightmares, but it had also become a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The relentless nature of evil had been defeated, and the Harrisons could finally call the ancient estate their home, a home free from the curse that had threatened to consume them all. The haunting of Darkmoor Manor. The moon hung low in the midnight sky, casting a ghostly pallor over the sprawling, long-abandoned Darkmoor Manor. The mansion stood atop a desolate hill, a foreboding sentinel of secrets and shadows. It had been the scene of countless tales, whispered through the ages, and Emily, a fearless paranormal investigator, had come to unravel its mysteries. Armed with cameras, voice recorders, and her unwavering skepticism, Emily had arrived at the mansion with the intent of debunking the countless stories of hauntings and horrors that had plagued it for generations. She was no stranger to the paranormal, having investigated numerous cases for her television show, but Darkmoor Manor was different. It oozed malevolence, a palpable aura of dread that clung to its decaying walls. As Emily crossed the threshold, she couldn't help but feel a shiver crawl down her spine. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the shadows seemed to have a life of their own, dancing and flickering in the dim light. Her footsteps echoed through the empty hallways, a hollow reminder of the mansion's forgotten past. The night began with a series of unexplained sounds, a distant whisper, the creaking of a long-abandoned staircase, and the eerie melody of a piano that hadn't been touched in decades. Emily remained resolute, attributing each occurrence to the natural settling of an old, decaying structure. But as the hours passed, Darkmoor Manor revealed its secrets in unsettling ways. Emily's cameras captured fleeting glimpses of figures in old-fashioned attire, their faces obscured by shadows. She analyzed the footage, searching for rational explanations, but the evidence was baffling. The apparitions defied logical explanation. As the night wore on, Emily's skepticism began to waver. She couldn't deny the mounting evidence of the supernatural. The whispers grew louder, their words indecipherable but filled with an ominous intent. Darkmoor Manor seemed to feed on her fear, its malevolent presence growing stronger with each passing moment. Emily retreated to the mansion's library, her heart pounding in her chest. She had come to debunk the legends, but now she was trapped in a nightmare of her own making. The walls seemed to close in, and the shadows pressed closer as if they were hungry for her fear. In a desperate bid to regain control, Emily decided to conduct a seance. She lit a circle of candles and, with trembling hands, reached out to the spirits that had plagued the mansion for centuries. Her voice quivered as she called out, "If there are any spirits here, please make your presence known." The room grew cold, and Emily's breath misted in the air as an unseen force seemed to answer her call. The candles flickered and dimmed, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. Emily's heart raced as she felt a presence in the room, a malevolent force that seemed to loom over her. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. A voice, as cold as ice and filled with malice, hissed in response. "I am the darkness that lingers, the shadow in the corners of your mind." Emily's hands shook as she struggled to maintain her composure. She had ventured into the realm of the supernatural countless times, but never had she encountered a force so malevolent, so intent on breaking her spirit. The room descended into chaos. Books flew off shelves, and furniture toppled over. Emily clutched the seance table, her knuckles white, as the malevolent presence seemed to close in around her. The walls pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and the air grew heavy with despair. In a final act of desperation, Emily recited a prayer of protection, a mantra she had learned in her years of investigating the paranormal. The words flowed from her lips, a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. The malevolent force recoiled, its power diminishing with each word. Emily could feel its rage and frustration, a whirlwind of emotions that lashed out one final time before dissipating into the void. The room fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Emily was left alone, shaken but alive. She knew that she had ventured too close to the edge of the supernatural. That Blackwood Manor held secrets that could not be easily explained away. As dawn broke, Emily emerged from the mansion, her eyes haunted by the events of the night. She had come to debunk the legends, to prove the skeptics right, but Blackwood Manor had shown her that there was a thin line between skepticism and belief. The malevolent presence that had tormented her had been real, a force that defied rational explanation. It had tested her resolve and pushed her to the brink of her sanity. And as Emily left the desolate hill behind, she couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lurked in the shadows, waiting for those who dared to venture into the realm of the unknown. The haunting of the doll collector. Claire had always been captivated by the delicate beauty of antique dolls. With their porcelain faces frozen in haunting expressions, they whispered secrets of the past and held a unique kind of allure. But Claire's fascination had grown into an obsession that would lead her down a path she could never have imagined. One fateful day, Claire stumbled upon an online listing for an estate sale at a decrepit mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion was renowned for housing a vast collection of antique dolls, a treasure trove for a collector like Claire. Her heart raced with excitement as she read about the dolls, each one more exquisite and mysterious than the last. Without hesitation, Claire set off for the mansion, her heart pounding with anticipation. The mansion's imposing facade loomed before her, its grandeur marred by time and neglect. Cobwebs clung to the cracked windows, and the garden had become an overgrown labyrinth of thorns and twisted vines. As Claire entered the mansion, the air grew heavy with the scent of dust and decay. She marveled at the endless rows of dolls, each displayed with meticulous care. They ranged from delicate porcelain beauties to eerie wooden marionettes, their eyes following her every move. Claire's fingers trembled as she reached out to touch one of the dolls, drawn to its eerie charm. It was as if the doll had a life of its own, beckoning her to join the macabre dance of the collection. Hours turned into days as Claire lost herself in the mansion's haunting beauty. She ignored calls from concerned friends and family, her obsession with the dolls growing stronger with each passing moment. She no longer saw them as lifeless objects but as her companions, her confidants. Then, one night, as Claire wandered the dimly lit corridors, she heard it, a soft, melodic whisper that seemed to emanate from the dolls themselves. "Join us," they cooed, their voices like a haunting lullaby. "Join us, Claire." Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she followed the voices, unable to resist their eerie allure. They led her to a hidden room at the heart of the mansion, a room she had never seen before. It was filled with dolls of all shapes and sizes, their eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. The dolls began to move, their joints creaking as they danced a macabre waltz. Claire watched in horror as they circled around her, their porcelain faces contorting into malevolent grins. She tried to scream, but her voice was drowned out by their haunting laughter. Desperate to escape, Claire stumbled back and collided with a dusty old mirror. As she gazed into her own reflection, her face contorted with terror. She saw herself, but not as she once was. Her skin had grown pallid, and her eyes mirrored the empty, lifeless gaze of the dolls. Claire knew then that she had become one of them, a part of the eerie collection that had ensnared her. She was trapped in the mansion, a prisoner of her own obsession. Days turned into weeks, and Claire's former life became a distant memory. She roamed the mansion with the other dolls, her movements stiff and mechanical. Her once vibrant spirit had been extinguished, replaced by an eerie emptiness. But deep within her porcelain prison, a small glimmer of consciousness remained. Claire yearned for freedom, for release from the torment of the haunted dolls. She knew that the key to her salvation lay in the mansion itself. One night, as the moon cast a pale glow over the mansion, Claire seized her chance. She climbed the creaking staircase to the attic, where the doll's power seemed to be at its strongest. The attic was a cavernous space filled with forgotten relics, a place where the dolls had whispered their secrets to her. As Claire confronted the dolls in the attic, a fierce battle of wills ensued. They taunted her with their haunting laughter, their whispers growing louder and more insistent. But Claire was determined to break free from their grasp. With every ounce of her remaining strength, she chanted an incantation she had discovered hidden in an old, dusty book. The words echoed through the attic, a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. The dolls shrieked and convulsed, their eyes flickering with fear. The room trembled as their power waned, and Claire felt herself growing stronger with each passing moment. In a blinding flash of light, the dolls were banished, their malevolent presence dissolving into the ether. Claire was free at last, her porcelain prison shattered. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Claire emerged from the mansion, her spirit weary but victorious. She had learned the true cost of obsession and the consequences of tampering with the supernatural. The mansion would forever bear the scars of its haunted past. But Claire had escaped the clutches of the dolls, her spirit unbroken. She knew that the dolls would continue to haunt the mansion, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim to fall under their sinister spell. But Claire had a newfound appreciation for the world outside, a world where obsessions could be tamed, and where the pursuit of beauty did not come at the price of one's soul. As she left the mansion behind, Claire couldn't help but wonder if the dolls' whispers would linger in the shadows of her mind, a reminder of the haunting experience that had forever changed her. The haunting of Seabrook Mansion. The night was shrouded in an impenetrable darkness as Detective Jameson stood before Seabrook Mansion, a once grand estate now abandoned and crumbling by the unforgiving sea. The mansion, perched on the edge of the cliff, seemed to hold the weight of centuries of secrets within its decaying walls. Jameson had been called to investigate a series of gruesome murders that had led him to this eerie place, but nothing could have prepared him for the horrors that awaited. The mansion's windows were shattered, and the wind whistled through the empty halls like the mournful cries of lost souls. As Jameson entered, the air grew heavy with the scent of dampness and decay. The walls bore the marks of time, and the grandeur of the past had given way to a haunting desolation. As he ventured deeper into the mansion, Jameson discovered old photographs and letters, remnants of a forgotten life. It was clear that the mansion had once been the site of a lavish and opulent existence, but now it lay in ruins, a testament to the passage of time. The first murder victim had been found nearby, and the evidence had led Jameson here, to Seabrook Mansion. The victim's death had been gruesome, a brutal act of violence that sent shivers down Jameson's spine. But as he delved deeper into the case, he uncovered a connection that sent a chill through his very soul, a connection to the mansion's dark history. Late one night, as Jameson sifted through old records and dusty archives, he heard a faint whisper in the darkness. "You should not have come," it hissed, a disembodied voice that seemed to echo through the mansion's corridors. Jameson's heart raced as he spun around, his gun drawn, but there was no one in sight. The mansion was empty, save for the shadows that danced in the dim light. He told himself it was a figment of his imagination, a result of the stress and exhaustion that came with the job, but deep down, he knew he was being watched. As the days turned into weeks, Jameson was haunted by the malevolent presence that seemed to linger in the mansion. He would catch glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corner of his eye, their ghostly forms flitting in and out of existence. The voice continued to taunt him, leaving eerie messages scrawled on the mansion's rotting walls. "You are not welcome here," it warned. The past should remain buried. Jameson's obsession with the case grew stronger with each passing day, and he couldn't ignore the feeling that the mansion held the key to solving the murders. He was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But the malevolent spirit had other plans. One night, as Jameson lay in a fitful sleep, he was jolted awake by a ghostly figure standing at the foot of his bed. It was a woman in a tattered gown, her eyes filled with a seething rage. She was the vengeful spirit of the mansion, and she had come to claim him. "You seek answers," she hissed, her voice like a whispering wind, "but you will find only darkness." Before Jameson could react, the spirit lunged at him, her icy fingers closing around his throat. He gasped for breath, his vision growing dim as he struggled to break free from her otherworldly grip. In a desperate bid for survival, Jameson recited a prayer he had learned in his youth, a prayer of protection against the forces of darkness. The words spilled from his lips, a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. The spirit recoiled with a howl of agony, her form dissipating into the night. Jameson gasped for breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that he had narrowly escaped the clutches of the vengeful spirit, but the darkness still loomed, and the mysteries of Seabrook Mansion remained unsolved. Determined to confront the malevolent presence once and for all, Jameson returned to the mansion, armed with knowledge and resolve. He descended into the bowels of the mansion, where he discovered a hidden chamber filled with old journals and diaries. As he read through the faded pages, Jameson uncovered the truth, a tale of betrayal, greed, and murder that had been buried for generations. The mansion had been the site of a heinous crime, a crime that had unleashed the vengeful spirit that now haunted its halls. With the knowledge in hand, Jameson made his way to the cliffs overlooking the sea, where the spirit awaited. The wind howled, and the waves crashed against the rocks below, creating a cacophony of sound that drowned out all else. The spirit materialized before him, her eyes burning with fury. "You will not uncover the truth," she hissed, her voice echoing in the stormy night. But Jameson stood his ground, his resolve unshaken. "I know what happened here," he declared. "I know the darkness that lingers." With those words, he recited an incantation, a plea for the spirit to find peace and release the mansion from its cursed past. The wind intensified, and the storm raged on, but Jameson's voice remained strong. In a blinding flash of light, the spirit wailed in agony, her form dissipating into the ether. The mansion itself seemed to tremble, and the malevolent presence that had plagued it for centuries began to recede. As dawn broke over the horizon, the storm abated, and Seabrook Mansion stood in solemn silence. Jameson knew that the mansion would forever bear the scars of its dark past, but he had confronted the vengeful spirit and brought closure to a long-forgotten tragedy. As he walked away from the cliff's edge, he couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed the mansion might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the price of uncovering hidden truths. But Jameson had faced the specter of secrets, and in doing so, he had found redemption, for himself and for the haunted mansion by the sea. The haunting of the Mirror Mansion. The grand mansion stood as a sentinel of opulence, its ornate mirrors gleaming in the soft glow of chandeliers. Olivia had always been drawn to the allure of reflection, and when she inherited this magnificent house, she was captivated by the countless mirrors that adorned its opulent halls. Little did she know that these mirrors held secrets that would shatter her world. Olivia had moved into the mansion with an insatiable curiosity. She had always been fascinated by the way mirrors could capture and distort reality, revealing hidden truths and concealing deep mysteries. The mansion's mirrors, however, were different. Each one seemed to hold a fragment of a past long forgotten. On her first night in the mansion, Olivia wandered the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. As she gazed into the mirrors, she caught glimpses of ghostly figures, their reflections moving independently of her own. She dismissed it as a trick of the light, a product of her overactive imagination, but the unsettling feeling persisted. As the days turned into weeks, Olivia's fascination with the mirrors grew. She would spend hours staring into them, lost in the distorted reflections that danced before her. She began to notice subtle changes in her own reflection, an eerie glint in her eyes, a malevolent smile that was not her own. Late one night, as Olivia stood before a massive, gilded mirror in the mansion's ballroom, she heard a soft, melodic whisper in the stillness of the room. "Release me," it murmured, a voice both haunting and alluring. Olivia's heart raced as she spun around, searching for the source of the voice. But the ballroom was empty except for her own reflection, which seemed to taunt her with a wicked grin. She told herself it was a trick of the mind, a manifestation of her obsession with mirrors, but deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. The malevolent presence within the mirrors grew stronger with each passing day. Reflections began to act independently, moving of their own accord. Olivia would catch glimpses of herself in the mirror, her reflection mocking her with gestures and expressions that she had never made. It wasn't long before the mirrors themselves began to distort reality. Olivia would stare into them, only to see her own reflection contort into grotesque and nightmarish forms. She would watch in horror as her reflection moved independently, mimicking her every action with a sinister glee. The mirrors seemed to revel in their power over Olivia, trapping her in a nightmarish world where reality and illusion merged. She knew she had to escape the mansion, to break free from the malevolent entity that lurked within the mirrors, but it was too late. The mirrors had become her prison, and there was no way out. One night, as Olivia wandered through the mansion's labyrinthine halls, she found herself drawn to the mirrored ballroom. The chandeliers cast a soft, ethereal glow, and the mirrors seemed to beckon her with their eerie allure. As she stepped into the ballroom, her reflection twisted and contorted in the mirrors, each one revealing a different facet of her torment. The malevolent presence within the mirrors had grown stronger, and Olivia could feel its icy grip tightening around her soul. In a desperate bid for escape, Olivia reached out to one of the mirrors, her fingers trembling as they touched the glass. Suddenly, her reflection pulled her in, and she was sucked into the mirror itself, a realm of endless reflections and distorted reality. Inside the mirror, Olivia found herself trapped in a nightmarish world where reflections acted independently. their malevolent laughter echoing in the eerie silence. She struggled to break free, to find a way back to the real world, but the mirrors seemed to have a life of their own. Desperation consumed her, and Olivia knew that she had to confront the malevolent entity that had ensnared her. She ventured deeper into the mirror's twisted realm, guided by the whispers of the spirit that lurked within. Finally, she came face to face with the vengeful entity, a shadowy figure that had been trapped within the mirrors for centuries. It was a reflection of her own vanity and obsession, a malevolent spirit born from her own desires. The spirit taunted her, its voice a chilling echo of her own. "You wanted to capture reality," it hissed, "but now reality has captured you." Olivia knew that she had to break free from the malevolent entity's grasp, to shatter the mirrors that held her captive. With all the strength she could muster, she confronted the spirit, her willpower pitted against its malevolence. In a blinding flash of light, the mirrors shattered, and Olivia was propelled back into the real world. She emerged from the mirrored ballroom, her body shaken but victorious. The malevolent entity had been vanquished, and the mansion's mirrors lay in ruins. As Olivia left the mansion behind, she couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed her might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the dangers of vanity and obsession. But she had faced the mirror's reflection, and in doing so, she had found a way to break free from the malevolent entity's grip. The mansion, once a place of allure and distortion, now stood in solemn silence. Its mirrors lay shattered, their power broken, and the malevolent entity trapped within them forever banished. Olivia had escaped the mirror's haunting grasp, but the haunting memories of her ordeal would stay with her, a reminder of the price of vanity and the dangers of obsession. The haunting melodies of Blackwood Mansion. Lily had always been captivated by the power of music. From the tender age of 6, when her fingers first touched the keys of a piano, she knew that music was her true calling. Her passion for the piano had led her to the grand Blackwood Mansion, a place steeped in history and mystery. The mansion, with its towering spires and ivy-covered walls, loomed in the moonlight like a specter from another time. It was a place of both beauty and melancholy, and Lily had been inexplicably drawn to it. Upon moving into the mansion, Lily discovered the centerpiece of the grand music room, a magnificent piano, its ebony and ivory keys gleaming in the soft glow of candelabras. It was a work of art, and Lily knew that she had found her muse. Late one night, as she sat before the piano, her fingers dancing across the keys, she heard a faint, haunting melody, an exquisite piece of music that seemed to transcend time itself. But she was alone in the room, and the sound of the piano was impossible to ignore. She listened in awe as the music swelled and soared, its notes echoing through the mansion's echoing halls. It was as if the piano itself had come to life, playing a melody that was both haunting and beautiful. As the days turned into weeks, Lily continued to hear the ghostly pianist playing in the dead of night. She was enthralled by the music, but also haunted by its mysterious source. She knew that there was something otherworldly at play, something that defied explanation. One evening, as she explored the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, Lily stumbled upon a hidden room. Inside, she found an old leather-bound book filled with sheet music, its pages yellowed with age. It was a collection of compositions written by the mansion's former owner, a gifted pianist named Alexander Blackwood. The sheet music was unlike anything Lily had ever seen. It was as if each piece had been infused with the soul of its creator, conveying emotions that transcended time and space. She realized that the ghostly pianist was none other than Alexander Blackwood himself, trapped within the mansion's walls, his music an eternal echo of his soul. As Lily played the compositions, she felt a deep connection to Alexander, as if his spirit guided her fingers across the keys. The music flowed through her, a haunting and melancholic lament that spoke of lost love and unfulfilled dreams. But as Lily delved deeper into Alexander's compositions, she began to unravel the tragic story of his life. He had been a brilliant pianist who had once graced the stages of Europe's grandest concert halls, but a tragic accident had left him paralyzed, his dreams shattered and his music silenced. Desperate to find a way to continue his passion for music, Alexander had turned to the supernatural, invoking dark forces to bind his spirit to the mansion's piano. It was a desperate act born of despair and longing, and it had condemned him to an eternity of haunting melodies. Lily knew that she had to help Alexander find peace, to free him from the mansion's grasp. She ventured into the music room one fateful night, her heart heavy with determination. As she played Alexander's compositions, the ghostly pianist joined her, his spectral hands caressing the keys. The music swelled, a haunting and bittersweet symphony that seemed to transcend the boundaries of life and death. But as the final notes faded, Lily could feel Alexander's presence growing weaker, his spirit fading into the shadows. She knew that she had to make a choice. To free Alexander from his torment, she had to sever the link between him and the piano. With trembling hands, she reached into the hidden compartment of the piano, where she discovered an old, weathered manuscript, the ritual that had bound Alexander's spirit to the instrument. As she recited the incantation, the mansion seemed to tremble, and the room filled with a blinding light. Lily could feel Alexander's presence growing stronger, his spirit no longer trapped by the piano's malevolent grasp. With a final, bittersweet smile, Alexander's ghostly figure materialized before her. He thanked Lily with a nod, his eyes filled with gratitude, and then he slowly faded away, his spirit finally at peace. As the mansion fell silent, Lily knew that she had helped Alexander find redemption. And in doing so, she had uncovered the enduring power of music and the ability of art to transcend the boundaries of time and space. She continued to play Alexander's compositions, sharing his haunting melodies with the world. And as the music echoed through the mansion's halls, she couldn't help but feel his presence beside her, a reminder of the enduring nature of art and the beauty that could be found in even the darkest of places. The haunting of Sinclair Mansion. The Sinclair family had always dreamed of a fresh start in a grand old mansion, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. When they stumbled upon the gloomy, Gothic mansion nestled in a fog-shrouded forest, it seemed like a dream come true. Little did they know that their new home held secrets darker than the shadows that clung to its walls. As they settled into the mansion, the Sinclair family couldn't help but feel a creeping unease. The grandeur of the mansion was undeniable, but it was also shrouded in an oppressive darkness that seemed to seep from its very walls. It was on the first night that they encountered the shadows. As they gathered in the dimly lit dining room for dinner, they saw them, a flickering movement in the corners of their vision, dark forms that darted out of sight when they turned to look. At first, they dismissed it as a trick of the mind, a product of their imagination running wild in their new, eerie surroundings. But as the days passed, the shadows grew bolder, creeping closer and closer to the Sinclair family. One evening, as young Emily Sinclair played with her toys in the parlor, she noticed her shadow stretching and distorting on the wall, its form contorting into grotesque shapes. She screamed in terror, and her parents rushed to her side, but there was no explanation for what they had witnessed. The shadows seemed to take on a life of their own, slithering across the floors and climbing the walls. They would gather in dark corners, their malevolent presence casting an oppressive pall over the mansion. As night fell, the mansion came alive with sinister shadows, and the Sinclair family felt as though they were trapped in a nightmare. They would hear whispered voices in the darkness, the shadows seeming to speak to them in hushed, sinister tones. Desperate to escape the malevolent shadows that haunted their new home, the Sinclair family tried to leave the mansion, but they found that the doors were locked, the windows sealed shut. It was as if the mansion itself had conspired to trap them within its walls. As the days turned into a harrowing week, the Sinclair family grew more and more terrified. They would wake to find their beds surrounded by the shadows, their forms looming over them as they slept. The shadows seemed to feed on their fear, growing darker and more sinister with each passing night. In their desperation, the Sinclair family searched the mansion for answers, uncovering old books and journals that spoke of a dark ritual performed in the mansion's past, a ritual that had bound the shadows to the mansion and condemned its inhabitants to an eternity of torment. With each passing day, the shadows grew bolder, their forms growing more grotesque and menacing. They would reach out with inky tendrils, their touch sending shivers of dread down the Sinclair family's spines. In a desperate bid for escape, the family ventured into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. But no matter which way they turned, they found themselves surrounded by the sinister shadows, their forms closing in, threatening to consume them. It was in the darkest hour of their despair that they stumbled upon a room filled with inky darkness, a room that seemed to be the epicenter of the malevolent shadow's power. As they entered the room, the shadows seemed to come alive, their forms writhing and contorting in the darkness. In the heart of the room, they found an old, weathered manuscript, a ritual that could break the binding between the shadows and the mansion. With trembling hands, they recited the incantation, their voices trembling with fear and determination. As they spoke the final words of the incantation, a blinding light filled the room, and the shadows wailed in agony, their forms dissipating into the ether. The oppressive darkness that had haunted the mansion for so long began to lift, and the Sinclair family knew that they had broken free from the malevolent shadow's grasp. As they left the mansion behind, they couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed them might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the fear of the unknown and the darkness within us all. But they had faced the shadows within, and in doing so, they had found the strength to conquer their deepest fears and escape the haunted mansion in the fog-shrouded forest. The haunting of the portrait mansion. Alex had always been drawn to the power of art. As an aspiring artist, the idea of capturing the essence of a person's soul on canvas fascinated him. So when he stumbled upon the grand mansion filled with portraits of its previous residents, he thought he had found his muse. Little did he know that the portraits held secrets that would shatter his understanding of art in reality. The mansion stood in solemn silence, its walls adorned with portraits of the long deceased. Each painting depicted a resident of the mansion, their eyes following Alex as he moved through the dimly lit hallways. It was as if the souls of the past lingered in the frames, waiting for someone to acknowledge their existence. Alex couldn't resist the allure of the portraits. He spent hours in the mansion's gallery, studying each painting with an artist's discerning eye. The faces in the portraits seemed to come to life under his gaze, their expressions shifting and their eyes revealing hidden emotions. One evening, as he stood before a portrait of a young woman with hauntingly sad eyes, he heard a faint, ethereal whisper. "Help us," it murmured, a voice both haunting and desperate. Startled, Alex turned to the painting, but the gallery was empty except for the portraits. He told himself it was his imagination playing tricks on him, that he was letting the mystery of the mansion get the best of him. But deep down, he knew that something otherworldly was at play. As the days turned into weeks, the spirits within the portraits grew bolder. They would step out of their frames and walk the halls of the mansion at night, their spectral forms casting eerie shadows. They whispered in hushed tones, their voices filled with longing and despair. Alex couldn't resist their call. He began to paint the spirits, capturing their ethereal forms on canvas. With each stroke of his brush, he felt a deeper connection to the souls of the past. But as he painted, he also sensed their growing desperation, their need to be released from the confines of the mansion and its haunting portraits. One night, as Alex painted the spectral figure of a young boy, the spirit reached out to him, its cold, bony fingers grazing his hand. He could feel the spirit's pain and sorrow, and he knew that he had to help them find release. Desperate to uncover the truth, Alex delved into the mansion's history, uncovering old journals and diaries that spoke of a dark ritual performed in the past, a ritual that had bound the souls of the mansion's residents to their portraits, condemning them to an eternity of torment. With each revelation, Alex felt a growing sense of responsibility to free the tormented spirits. He learned that the key to breaking the binding lay in a long-forgotten incantation, a chant that could sever the connection between the spirits and their portraits. One fateful night, as the spirits gathered in the gallery, Alex recited the incantation, his voice trembling with fear and determination. The room filled with a blinding light, and the spirits wailed in agony as their forms began to dissipate. But as the last note of the incantation faded, one spirit remained, a spectral figure of a woman with tear-filled eyes. She was the last to be released, the final soul to find freedom. With a bittersweet smile, the woman nodded her gratitude to Alex, her eyes filled with unspoken emotion, and then she slowly faded away, her spirit finally at peace. As the mansion fell silent, Alex knew that he had helped the spirits find redemption, and in doing so, he had uncovered the power of art to capture the soul. He continued to paint, sharing the stories of the mansion's residents with the world through his art. The mansion, once a place of mystery and torment, now stood in solemn silence. Its portraits had lost their haunted aura, their occupants finally at rest. Alex couldn't help but wonder if the power of the forgotten portrait might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the consequences of neglecting the past. But he had faced the spirits within, and in doing so, he had found the true essence of art and the ability of creativity to transcend the boundaries of time and space. The haunting of the eternal dinner party. The invitation had arrived in a delicate envelope, bearing the crest of an elegant mansion that seemed to have materialized out of a forgotten era. Emily, intrigued by the mysterious invitation, found herself drawn to the promise of an unforgettable experience. As she approached the mansion, its grandeur was undeniable. The wrought iron gates swung open, and Emily made her way up the sweeping driveway. The mansion stood like a sentinel in the moonlight, its windows aglow with a warm, inviting light. The moment Emily stepped into the mansion's opulent foyer, she knew that this was no ordinary dinner party. The guests, impeccably dressed in garments from a bygone era, mingled in the lavishly decorated rooms, their laughter and conversation filling the air. The grand dining room was the centerpiece of the evening, its long table adorned with crystal chandeliers and fine china. Emily took her seat among the guests, her curiosity growing with each passing moment. As the dinner began, Emily couldn't help but notice the strange atmosphere that hung over the room. The guests, though seemingly alive, had a haunted look in their eyes. Their laughter was forced, their smiles masking a deeper torment. The courses kept coming, each one more lavish than the last. But Emily began to notice that something was amiss. The guests would take a bite of their food, only to have it replenished before their eyes. The wine glasses never emptied, and the dishes never grew cold. As Emily engaged in conversation with her fellow diners, she learned the horrifying truth. They were trapped in a never-ending dinner party, a ghastly cycle of indulgence and torment. The mansion was a prison, and they were its eternal guests. As the hours stretched into what felt like an eternity, the guests began to reveal their tragic stories. Each one had been lured to the mansion by the promise of pleasure and luxury, only to become ensnared in its malevolent grasp. There was a young woman who had been a talented musician in her former life, her hands forever bound to the strings of a phantom violin. There was a gentleman who had been a renowned chef, now condemned to an eternity of preparing meals that would never be consumed. And there was an elderly couple, once deeply in love, now forever separated by the confines of the mansion. As the night wore on, Emily felt a growing sense of dread. She knew that she had to find a way to escape the mansion's clutches, to break free from the never-ending cycle of horror. But the mansion's grip was unyielding, its opulence a facade that concealed its true nature. Desperate for answers, Emily ventured into the mansion's shadowy corridors, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. She discovered a hidden room, its walls adorned with old portraits of the mansion's guests, frozen in time with haunted expressions. In the center of the room, she found an old, weathered diary, a diary that detailed the mansion's dark history. It spoke of a cursed dinner party that had taken place decades ago, a night of decadence and indulgence that had led to the guests' eternal torment. With each revelation, Emily's resolve grew stronger. She knew that she had to confront the malevolent force that held the mansion and its guests in its thrall. She returned to the dining room, where the guests were trapped in their endless cycle of pleasure and despair. With a trembling voice, Emily revealed the mansion's dark history, the curse that had bound them to this never-ending dinner party. The guests' expressions shifted from confusion to terror, their haunted eyes filling with recognition. As Emily recited the incantation she had discovered in the diary, the mansion seemed to tremble, its opulent facade crumbling before their eyes. The guests' tormentors, ghostly figures that had masqueraded as servants, appeared in a blinding light. With a final, chilling scream, the malevolent force was banished, and the mansion's grip was broken. The guests, freed from their eternal torment, vanished into the night, their spirits finally at peace. The mansion, once a place of decadence and horror, now stood in solemn silence. Its grandeur had faded, its rooms empty and devoid of life. Emily couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed the mansion might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the price of indulgence and the cycle of eternal torment. As she left the mansion behind, Emily knew that she had faced the horrors of the eternal dinner party and emerged victorious. The memories of that night would stay with her, a haunting reminder of the price of indulgence and the enduring nature of the human spirit.